They found his tomb in 1974. What they discovered inside wasn't meant for the living. 8,000 soldiers stood in perfect formation, eyes forward, weapons ready. Each face different from the last, each one made of clay. And beneath them, somewhere in the poisoned earth, slept the man who believed he'd live forever. The year was 246 BC when a boy became king at 13. His name was Yingzheng. History would remember him as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He inherited a fractured world, 7 kingdoms bleeding each other dry. Warlords who'd been fighting so long they forgot what peace tasted like. The boy looked at the chaos and saw something no one else could see. One empire, one ruler, one chance to break the cycle. It took him 25 years to do what everyone said was impossible. He conquered them all. Burned their books, melted their weapons, drew borders that had never existed. China became China because of him. But victory did something to his mind, something worse than any battle wound. He started asking the question that ruins every conqueror. What comes next? Power is a strange poison. The more you have, the more you realize what you're about to lose. He stood in his palace at 40, master of everything under heaven. Armies that moved at his word, cities that rose from his designs, a wall stretching across mountains to keep death itself outside his borders. And yet, every morning he woke up older. Every mirror showed him the truth no decree could change. He was going to die like everyone else. That's when the alchemists arrived. They came from the edges of his empire bearing scrolls and strange promises. Men who claimed to have studied the secrets written in smoke, who said the gods had left clues in mercury pools and jade stones. Immortality, they whispered, was real, not metaphorical, not spiritual. Actual flesh that would never rot, blood that would never slow. The emperor listened. Because when you've conquered everything except time, what else is there to want? He sent expeditions across the sea searching for the island of the Immortals. 3,000 young men and women sailed east, never to return. Either they found paradise and kept it for themselves, or the ocean swallowed the lie whole. He didn't care about the cost. He just needed to know it was possible. The alchemists prepared their elixirs in hidden chambers, ground cinnabar into powder, mixed mercury with jade dust, heated compounds that shimmered like liquid starlight. They called it the pill of immortality. He took the first dose on a summer evening, watching the sun set over his empire. The liquid burned going down, tasted like metal and minerals and something ancient. The alchemists promised it would take time. That immortality grew slowly, like roots deepening in stone. So he kept drinking, every night, every week, every month. His hair began to thin. His hands developed tremors. His mind started slipping between clarity and fog. The physicians whispered among themselves. They recognized the symptoms, mercury poisoning. But no one told the emperor. You don't tell a god he's killing himself with his own ambition. Somewhere in those final years, he made a decision that still haunts the earth. If he couldn't live forever, he'd build forever instead. 700,000 workers, 38 years of construction, a tomb complex covering 38 square miles. Not a grave, a palace for the afterlife. He ordered rivers of mercury to flow through the underground chambers, representing the rivers of his empire. Crossbows rigged to fire at intruders, a ceiling painted with constellations using pearls that would glow in the dark. And then he commissioned something that had never been done before, an army. The craftsmen worked in secret workshops across the empire. Sculptors who knew they'd never see daylight again once the project finished. They molded clay into warriors, each one life-sized, each one unique. No two faces the same, no two hands positioned identically. Different ranks, different armor, different expressions frozen between duty and something close to fear. Infantry, archers, cavalry with clay horses, charioteers gripping reins that would never move. 8,000 soldiers, 200 horses, hundreds of officials and acrobats and musicians, all of them hollow inside, all of them standing guard over a man who refused to believe in endings. The historians say he wanted protection in the afterlife, that he feared enemies would follow him beyond death, but maybe he built them for a different reason. Maybe he needed to prove that something could last, that craftsmanship could defeat time even if flesh couldn't, that if he couldn't be immortal, he could at least leave ghosts that wouldn't fade. He died in 210 BC during a tour of his empire's eastern provinces, 50 years old. Body failing from years of mercury and jade and desperation. The official story says he died of natural causes, but his own court knew the truth. The elixirs of immortality had killed him. His advisors panicked. They were hundreds of miles from the capital. Summer heat, a dead emperor, a succession crisis waiting to explode. So they did something that belongs in nightmares. They hid his body in a carriage with rotting fish to mask the smell, pretended he was still alive, issued fake decrees in his name as they rushed back to the capital. For weeks, the empire took orders from a corpse. When they finally announced his death, they buried him in the tomb he'd spent decades building, sealed the doors, killed the workers who knew the entrance locations, and then they triggered the traps, the crossbows, the mercury rivers, the sealed chambers designed to kill anyone who came looking. His tomb became his final enemy. The thing he built to preserve his legacy became the thing that erased him from memory. For over 2,000 years, no one found him. In 1974, in Qin Shi province, a group of farmers digging a well struck something hard buried in the earth. Clay fragments. Then a head, then a torso in armor, then another, and another. They'd found the outer edges of the tomb complex, the terracotta soldiers standing in formation exactly where they'd been placed 22 centuries earlier. Archaeologists descended, excavators, historians, and officials who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Pit after pit, army after army, an entire world built from clay. Some warriors still held bronze weapons that hadn't rusted. Some stood in formation so precise you could still read the military strategy in their positioning. And every face was different, every single one. Someone had taken the time to make 8,000 individuals, to carve personality into mud, to give uniqueness to an army that would never move. It was beautiful, and it was horrifying. They still haven't opened his actual tomb, the central mound where his body supposedly rests. Soil samples show mercury levels 100 times higher than normal. The ancient texts weren't lying. Rivers of poison really do flow beneath the earth. Modern technology can map the chambers. Ground-penetrating radar shows vast spaces underground, walls, corridors, something massive waiting in the dark. But no one goes in. Maybe it's respect. Maybe it's fear of the traps. Maybe it's the mercury that would kill excavation teams in minutes. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe we know that some obsessions are better left buried. Here's what the historians won't tell you. The emperor didn't fail. He got his immortality, just not the kind he wanted. His name lived. His wall still stands. His empire's borders became a nation. His clay soldiers became one of the most famous discoveries in human history. Millions of people visit his tomb every year, stand in front of his Terracotta Army, whisper his name, take his picture. He's more alive now than he ever was, but the cost wasn't his life, it was his humanity. He became the obsession. The man disappeared into the myth. The person dissolved into the project. What's left isn't Ying Zheng, the boy who became king at 13. It's Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who couldn't let go. A title without a face, a legend without warmth. Immortality, sure, but the kind that's made of stone and silence. If you stand in those excavation pits and look at the soldiers, really look, you'll notice the detail is impossible. The craftsmanship takes your breath. Each warrior probably took weeks to make. Hair carved strand by strand, armor textured plate by plate, fingers positioned around weapons with anatomical precision. Someone loved this work, hundreds of someones. They knew they were building something that would outlast empires. They knew their names would be forgotten, but their hands would be remembered. And then the emperor killed them all, sealed them in the tomb to protect its secrets. That's the part that breaks you, not the grandeur, not the scale, not even the mercury rivers or the crossbow traps. It's the realization that genius was murdered to serve paranoia, that beauty was built on bones, that immortality required everyone else to die. The alchemists lied to him, or maybe they believed their own lies. Either way, the pills didn't work. Couldn't work. Mercury doesn't make you immortal. It makes your kidneys fail and your brain decay and your hands shake until you can't hold a brush anymore. But here's the cruel part. He probably knew. Toward the end, when the symptoms were too obvious to ignore, he probably understood he was dying. And he kept taking the pills anyway. Because stopping would mean admitting defeat. Admitting that time had won. That all the power in the world couldn't buy him one more heartbeat. So he drank poison and called it medicine. Built a tomb and called it a palace. Surrounded himself with clay soldiers and called it an army. And told himself that somehow, in some version of forever, it would all make sense. They say the tomb is cursed, that anyone who disturbs it will die. Scientists dismiss this as superstition, point to the mercury, say it's physics, not magic. But maybe curses don't need magic. Maybe the curse is simpler than that. The curse is wanting to live forever in a world that's built on endings. The curse is believing you can defeat death by spending your entire life preparing for it. The curse is sacrificing everything human in pursuit of something inhuman. The curse is getting exactly what you wanted and realizing it was never what you needed. 2,000 years later, tourists walk through the excavation halls. Kids press their faces against the glass barriers. Cameras flash over warriors who were never meant to be photographed. And somewhere beneath it all, in chambers no one has entered, surrounded by rivers of mercury and traps that still wait with mechanical patience, lies the body of a man who couldn't accept his own humanity. Did he ever find peace? Did the afterlife he built actually exist? Or did he just lock himself in an elaborate coffin? We'll never know. All we have are the soldiers, the clay faces that don't blink, the army that never moves, and the question that follows everyone who learns his story. What would you trade for forever? The answer, if you're honest, is probably more than you should. Because immortality sounds beautiful until you realize what it costs. Not just your life, but everyone else's. Not just your time, but your softness, your ability to cry, your permission to be small and temporary and human. The emperor learned this too late. Or maybe he never learned it at all. He just built bigger, dug deeper, mixed more mercury into his drinks and hoped that quantity would become quality. And in the end, he got what everyone gets. A hole in the ground, silence, darkness. The difference is, his hole is really big. If you thought China's first emperor was wild, wait until you hear about the lost empire that reached the stars. Subscribe so you don't miss it.